Hi there. So this is my review of the Book of Mormon. Recently, I had some Mormon missionaries come to my door, inviting me to a Christmas service on December 25th. I had a lot of time off for a minute, so I was like, okay. So I engaged them in some conversation. First question was, hey, why do you celebrate on December 25th? Is that the day you believe that your Savior was born? And they said, no, we think it was probably in April, but this is just when people celebrate it, so we do too. Okay. To me, that's an important question because it says something a lot about, what else might people conform to. And most Christianity believes that Jesus was probably born in April or something like this, but they celebrate the December 25th, the traditionally pagan holiday, is what it is. But that led to my next questions, and my major question for them was, hey, what made you decide that the Mormon faith was for you? What is it that makes you go out door to door and spend your whole day trying to make sure that other people have the same opportunity to have what you have? Was it an experience of faith? Was it something you grew up in? What is it? The answer was that they both read the Book of Mormon, both these missionaries, and that after reading it, they did the same thing that Joseph Smith did. They asked God, hey, what is the true church? And then they were shown unequivocally that this is the true church. The Book of Mormon is it. Joseph Smith was a true prophet, and that's why they do what they do. Hey, fair enough. They offered me the same opportunity. They said anybody who reads the Book of Mormon can do the same thing. They gave me a copy of the book, and then it was up to me, to make this decision on my own. Hey, I had some time. My background is very much interested in this. I love to study world religions and find out why millions and millions of people are so unequivocally convinced that this is the faith that needs to be followed and this is the way. So I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover, and I did what they said. And afterwards, I asked, I got into a really clear state. There was not a lot of stuff going on and not a lot of noise. And I asked, what is the true church? What is the true faith? And the answer I got, was beautiful. It was amazing. And I literally cried. Okay. But before I tell you what my experience was, I first want to give you my review of the Book of Mormon. So the Book of Mormon starts out in 600 BC. It's a man by the name of Nephi who gets a prophecy, and in this prophecy, he's told that in 600 years, he knows to the day that a Savior will come, the Son of God will come, and you'll know it because the sun will go down, but it will still be light out all day. And then you'll know that the prophecy's been fulfilled, that the Savior has died and resurrected, because it will go dark, I think, for 3 days, and then there'll be no light at all. Okay, so for 600 years, the first part of this book, which is a compilation of, 15 smaller books, the Book of Mormon is, much like the Bible is, Genesis, Exodus, all the way through, it comprised the Bible. The Book of Mormon is comprised of 15 smaller books. So it starts out with Nephi. He gets these golden plates, and he's writing down his prophecy. He writes down what happens to his people. And then there's this rival group called the Lamanites. So there's the Nephites now, or his descendants, and there's the Lamanites. And basically they're the heel of the story. They're the ones that are always out to get the Nephites. They're always trying to persecute them. They don't believe in the prophecy. And so, there's a lot of descendants. This person, begot this person, and this person had this child, this person had this child. And they go all the way through the lineage, and each one will write on these golden plates what's happening to them during that time, what the state of their church is, and they pass it on. So a lot of it's war, back and forth, very Old Testament-like things. And what's interesting, it gets all the way to the birth of Jesus, which also the Book of Mormon inside there is a book that talks about, when Jesus was on earth. One of their descendants was one of the 12 apostles. All the 12 apostles' names are different than you might read in the Bible. And then all of a sudden their descendants afterwards as well, and what happens to their faith after Jesus comes and goes, the prophecy is fulfilled, everybody's really faithful, they're doing all these things, and their faith wanes, and people go back to their old ways, they're doing bad things. And so what's really interesting to me is, the first few books are, they're kind of boring to me. It's just a lot about who had whose kids, and, their war and the faith and all this about whether or not they're doing the right thing. And then the part about where Jesus was here was pretty much his word for word, anything you would have read in the 4 gospel books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Sermon on the Mount's pretty much a copy paste right in there. It even says in the description, much like, the book of Matthew, I think it says. Anyway, so then it talks about the descendants. Where things start getting real interesting is after the death of Jesus. This book goes up to 400 AD. But in that process, I think it's like 100 or 200 years in, God's like, you know what? You guys got to go to this new land. And he puts them in shipping crates. And then they not shipping, but they're like boxes that they go into. They got holes for breathing holes on the way up and a hole on the way down. And then God gives them these magic stones that would light up their box while they're in there. And it's like 340 some days. They're traveling underwater, over water in these boxes until they finally get to America. Okay. So now they're in America. How they breathed in the box underwater for so long, I don't know. They had air holes, but they also talk about them being underwater in currents for so long. So I don't know what that was about. They get here, and apparently in America there was elephants. They said there was elephants here. We're talking AD now, and it's not like BC woolly mammoth stuff. We're talking about like 200 to 400 AD that they're claiming that there's elephants were roaming the lands. And then the Nephite people, they start multiplying. They're in New York, right? They're in upstate New York now, and they have like millions of people going on because the Lamanites are back, and they're trying to take out the Nephites still. And so they're having this battle, right? They're having a battle. And there's apparently, it says 2 million people died in upstate New York. And that was just the men, the soldiers, not to mention the women and children. They all died, and somewhere there's like 2 million bones, 2 million people's bones somewhere in New York where this battle was. And the only people remaining, the only 2 people left was the king of the Nephites and the king of the Lamanites. And then they're battling out, and everybody dies. Well, and then finally that gets handed on to his son, and then it ends with Moroni. Is like, this was the war that happened and nobody's left. And then God apparently curses the bad guys with dark skin. Now, that threw me off because they're claiming that the reason that there were Native Americans in America was because they were always white, but then God just cursed them after this battle and gave them all like the red skin as a curse for their disobedience to God. What? Yeah, that not that the Native Americans were always here, not that there was a migratory path, that we're disregarding the history of the culture. Everybody was white until they messed up in AD, and now they're cursed with dark skin. This by the way is still carried on. Brigham Young, the founder of the BYU University, the Mormon University, said that black people have flat noses and black skin because God's angry, he's cursed them. And, that's where I got to stop and be like, hold up. These people are coming to my house. One of the missionaries was white. The other dude was Hispanic. A Hispanic Mormon missionary came to my house professing this was the truth. And that his culture must have been white all that time until AD something, when in upstate New York, God cursed them all with the dark skin. We're disregarding the fact that there's elephant bones, that apparently elephants were roaming in America. We're disregarding the fact that nobody's found these 2 million bodies on this war that supposedly happened not that many centuries ago. And there's a lot of other details that we might be overlooking too, in order to make this right. Now, where did this come from? Well, we got the golden plates, right? So at least we can... No, there's no golden plates anymore. The golden plates, the last guy, Moroni, the last guy who wrote the last book, too, of the Book of Mormon, Moroni, he hid them in the hills because, he was afraid that they were going to be found and destroyed. And so he hid them, and then that's it. It wasn't until the early 1800s, here comes 1823, and Joseph Smith, he's a 15-year-old boy, and he's praying to God, show me the true church. And all of a sudden, Moroni comes back as an angel to Joseph Smith and says, hey, this is the true church. You need to start the church. It's the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. And I'm going to show you these golden plates. Follow me. In a vision, he shows Joseph Smith where these golden plates were. Joseph Smith finds the golden plates in the hills in New York, and all of a sudden he can transcribe this language. He looks into a hat with some like seeing thing, and he doesn't even look at the plates, but he can just know what they are, and he writes down the whole Book of Mormon. Then, before there's witnesses or anything, like before they can show it around the town, we have the gold plates. The angel Moroni takes the plates back up with him to heaven, and now Joseph Smith is left there with just his translation and no plates. The townspeople are so amazed that there's no way this boy could have written this. They say he's 15, he wasn't that educated, and so therefore it must be true, and we're going to put our whole salvation on Joseph Smith. He told the truth. Well, that's wild to me. That's really wild to me. The bigger problem came that Joseph Smith didn't stop there. In 1835, an Egyptologist comes by with this mummy that's wrapped with this like papyrus paper that's written this stuff on it, this burial papers. And he's showing, it's a traveling thing. Back in the day, they would go through town and show people the mummies. Everybody's, I've never seen this before. This is amazing. Joseph Smith, however, stops and goes, wait, I can read this. And all the people are like, oh, you can read it? He's like, yeah. So they put up all the money. It was like $2,400 back then. It was a lot of money in the 1800s. And they buy the mummy and the papyrus. And Joseph Smith's like, oh, yeah, you did? Okay, yeah, I'll translate it. No problem. Yeah, let me translate it. So Joseph Smith takes his time and he's translating. He says this Egyptian burial is actually the lost book of Abraham. And it tells a story of how he was going to sacrifice his son. And he talks about how there's this planet, Kolob, where they're all from, the celestial planet. And it's close to the sun. And that's their true home. And they're going to go back to their planet. And he's saying they're reading this all because he can read this Egyptian hieroglyph. And that Kolob is their true planet. The Mormons today still sing songs about their true planet, Kolob. And it's not in the Book of Mormon, but they equivalent because Joseph Smith is the prophet, so the Book of Abraham must be true too. Unfortunately, time goes by and people can start reading Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's not like a little town in New York or Ohio anymore. This is, now Egyptologists are like, oh, well, okay, let's see your translation. And they read the translation, and then they see what it actually says. And like, no, this is a traditional Egyptian papyrus. There's Osiris and there's Horus, and this is what they'd put. I've seen many of these, and they're all the same. This is a traditional burial of Egyptians. The New York Times even had a front page paper being like, Joseph Smith is full of it. Like front page news back in the 1800s. Mark Twain got a hold of the Book of Mormon and read it. The premier author of America in the 19th century reads this and calls it literary chloroform. I'm talking about the Book of Mormon, not even the Book of Abraham. Literary chloroform. He's like, it's like modern English, and occasionally he threw in thee and thou and stuff to make it look older than it is. He's like, this is tripe. Like, how could you possibly even fathom this is legit? But yet, it still goes on. You ask an Egyptologist, we still have remnants of this papyrus that was thought to be burned down. We still have the remnants. You can read it, you can see it yourself, and ask an Egyptian what it says, and they'll be like, nah, it's not about Abraham. That's a burial thing. So look, man, Joseph Smith lied to y'all. He lied. He just, like, sociopathic lied. Like, not even like a white lie. Like, this is like crazy lying. And I wouldn't have such a beef with it and probably wouldn't be making this video if people weren't going around convincing people to do this and then give 10% of your money to the church. Okay, the Church of Joseph Smith. By the way, first book of Nephi, Twice it says, thou should not, you don't have more than one wife, no concubines. God is not down with lust. You have one wife, that's it. So where the 7 wives came from, I don't know. Joseph Smith had like multiple wives. He had other people's wives they didn't know about in the church. He had his kids were married to him. He was having relations with 14, 15-year-olds that were supposedly his daughters. I mean, this guy was just taking full advantage of this completely. And so people, the Mormons say, well, there's no way that he could have done that on his own and translated it, so it must be fact, it's gold, give 10% of your money to the church. There's a church that just spent $1.5 billion on a shopping mall. The tabernacles, I mean, I live in San Diego, the La Jolla Tabernacle is beautiful, man. I love the fact that it's there, it's gorgeous, but that money is being taken from people that are still being fooled by Joseph Smith and the succession of his racist successors' lies. And now, like in the 70s, all of a sudden you could be black and be a priest and all this. It's like, come on, people. How can you be black and be a Mormon? How? How can you say that you're cursed with your red skin if you're a Native American and that's why you're here and still be a Mormon? Like, this is crazy psychology. And this is why I love studying world religions, because you'll find millions and millions of people. There was a Mormon army. They got kicked to Utah from like Ohio because they were at a militia that was bigger, it was rivaling the U.S. government. They had to kick them out and give them land in Utah because it was that much of a problem. But this is wild. Well, I told you at the beginning, though, I did read the book cover to cover and had an amazing experience. I had something so beautiful happen, and I did want to share it to you. And it wasn't because I believe that, and this is where the psychology kicks in. Anytime somebody comes to God, anytime somebody comes to the Creator, the divine spirit that is connected between man and the Creator that is born within you, you will receive the answer. So it didn't have to be that I read this whole book. Anytime someone truly comes from their heart and says, God, show me the true church, show me the true faith, they will be shown. And I'll tell you what my answer was. It was totally quiet. It was totally silent. I didn't know anybody else had come in the room. Nobody knew what I was doing in the room. And then somebody must push play on the radio. And the song that came on when I said, God, what is the true church? Was the Bee Gees. How deep is your love? And man, I heard that song when it came on. How deep is your... In a way, I'd never heard it. I don't actually know if that was even a song from a man to a woman. If you read it, talks about how you're my savior, how you come to me, how you rescue me in my deepest, darkest hour, and I feel you in the breeze, in the soft summer breezes when you come to me and show me that you're there. This was the perfect answer for what is it? Because the question that God gave me back was, how deep is your love? How deep do you want to go in? How deep do you want to get off the superficial? Do you want to go past the emotion? Do you want to really, really go to God? And the question of what is the true church is, how deep is your love, right? How deep is your spirit? What is your connection to the Christ consciousness that lives inside of you? And if you go deeper and deeper, and I'm not going to proselytize back, but for me it's meditation. It's getting rid of the layers of mind, matter, and illusion to connect with the divine essence that lives within each and every one of us. And I can see why so many people would be convinced, because to have an experience like that after reading the Book of Mormon, if I had never read any other religious text, well, it was the Book of Mormon that did that. It wasn't the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is a lie. It's BS. The Book of Abraham really solidified that, and I'm openly saying that to God and risking my eternal salvation for saying it. But Joseph Smith done lied to you. He lied to a lot of people, and now they're still taking 10% of your money. They got no basis for anything they say. And it's all based on the account of a man who was a known storyteller who is totally proven wrong with the Book of Abraham on top of everything else. Not to mention there's no elephants, there's no 2 million bones in upstate New York. And you can even, if you read it, you can see all the connections that Joseph Smith put in his book from the Old Testament, also with another book by another man, I forget, Robert Smith, something like that, 70 years before a journey that he had taken. The book has like 70 connections to that. If you want to really figure it out, you can trace and see what he did there. But that's my book review of the Book of Mormon. I hope this helps. Recently I found 50 things wrong with the Mormon church that would show you that something's up, something's wrong. But that's mine, and that's my review of the Book of Mormon. God bless.